The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hey guys, John Cutton here, tuning in. I've got a couple of minutes after the hour and wanted to get started. Hope everybody is doing well. I have a jam-packed agenda today, a lot of ground to cover, and want to kind of get right into it here. So with that being said, we're going to get right into some information. And what I wanted to start with, as I usually do, is to just go through our normal housekeeping. It's possible that I may go over a little bit today with the amount of information that I have, and we may not get the opportunity to do Q&A. I'll see how long it takes me to get through all the material, but as a reminder, assuming we do Q&A today, we can either use that raised hand feature and I can unmute your phone, or you can simply use that send question feature where you can type in your question and then I can read it aloud to the group and then answer your question aloud. So you guys have seen that before. From an agenda perspective, here's what I wanted to actually get through today. As you can see, it's a pretty packed agenda. I wanted to, as I like to do each call, hit a couple of recent successes that either I've had in my own practice or that an advisor in the group has had to kind of keep everybody focused and motivated, hopefully. Wanted to hit a quick accountability check-in. I've got a lot of notes back from everyone that they appreciated that accountability check-in on last month's webinar. So again, just so you can keep focused on what you should be doing each and every month, I'd like to hit that again for us as well. Quickly, I'm going to go through our CPA relationship model as a refresher, go through a very quick down and dirty overview of the four-step process. And that's really where we are today, guys, right? We spent our first several sessions going through both the marketing component of how to get belly-to-belly with CPAs and then what to do in each and every step on the four-step sales process. So I just want to hit that real quickly. And then I left off the last webinar with talking about getting implied permission to be a pest. So I want to pick up where we left off. That is a key ingredient, and I'm going to hit that in just a little while. It's one of the areas, guys, that I found that advisors in the program are not necessarily engaging the CPA in a relationship that is leadership-driven, where we are putting ourselves in the driver's seat and we're creating a relationship with the CPA that they've given us permission to be a pest, in badgering them, if you will, for lack of a better word, to drive referrals our way in the proper way. And I think that is a place where a lot of advisors seem to fall short. And that has a lot to do with our leadership skills, and that's going to be part of what we hit at the latter part of our presentation today as well. I want to also hit a little bit about understanding the CPA mindset. So you've heard the common CPA concerns. I've gotten a lot of requests to help in devising or creating a bit of a script as to what we can actually say, and as I like to say, what we can weave in to the sales process to ultimately help alleviate the CPA's concerns without necessarily checking off a box. In other words, I don't want to say, hey, here are your concerns and here's how we're going to help alleviate them. I want you to strategically be able to, throughout the entire sales process, be aware of what the concerns are generally and have some key phrases that you can integrate into your sales approach so that ultimately the CPA is understanding that you're aware of the concerns and you're alleviating them, right? You guys have heard me use the analogy, if I was selling an annuity with living benefit riders to a client, and if I was finishing my presentation and I asked the client if they had any questions, if they asked me what the fee structure was, if there were any internal costs, how long their money was going to be locked up, and what the tax ramifications of taking money out of the annuity were, chances are I didn't make a very good presentation. So we've, as salespeople, have gotten really good at anticipating the concerns or questions that our clients are going to have. What I want our group to be really effective at is anticipating the concerns or questions that a CPA has and alleviating them throughout the sales process. So when we get to the point where we're having our 3-option discussion and asking the CPA to choose which option is best for them, that they have already dispelled many of the concerns that they had. So I want to spend a fair amount of our time there today. And then lastly, and my hope is I will get to this part today. If not, I will pick it up on the next webinar. But I want to talk a little bit about leadership development. And I have a saying, it's the leader, it's always the leader. The advisors in our group that are having successes are the advisors that, quite frankly, are doing a good job of ensuring they meet with the CPA on a weekly or biweekly basis, and they are actually becoming good, strong leaders and influencing the CPA to give referrals in the right way. And then lastly, as part of leadership development, I want to go through something with you that I call the readiness assessment model. And this is something that I've used probably for over a decade in my own practice in developing my own staff and my junior partners within my practice. And I want to teach that to you so that you can begin to not only apply it to your staff and your team, but you can actually start to share it with the CPAs that you're working with in such a way that, number one, they can understand why they're not necessarily giving you referrals the proper way, or whatever it may be, educating their clients about financial planning, whatever the task may be. And number two, so that the CPA begins to buy into you as a consultant, as somebody who can help them build their business and become a better CPA or leader to their clients and their staff. This is something, guys, that I use every single day in my practice, and that I've taught many of my partners how to use with their staff. And if you get really good at it, you become unbelievably effective at helping apply the right leadership model, the right style of leadership, as I like to call it, to the individual that you're leading. Again, whether it be a staff person, whether it be an employee, whether it be a partner, or in this case, whether it be a CPA. So as you can probably see, guys, we have a pretty full agenda here. If time permits, I would like to spend a little time on Q&A, but my sense is that we may run out of time before we get there today. Briefly, I wanted to review a couple of recent successes. One I'm going to share occurred in our own practice, and one I will share happened in an advisor within our group's practice. So I'll start with the one that happened in our own practice, and it was actually a client that was brought on by one of my partners, one of my junior partners, through a CPA firm that we've created a strategic relationship with. And I think I shared a really big one with you guys last month as well. This one is not the same client, a different client. This was a client who has been a small business owner, actually in the insurance business, and recently sold his business to a much larger organization and got a very sizable buyout to the tune of about $5.5 million. My partner came home with a check, a personal check, which I've never actually seen a personal check made out for $4 million, but for $4 million to start the relationship. And the client wanted to keep the balance for tax reasons for the sale of the business. Here's what I'll share with you guys. He picked up that check in the second meeting with the client. The CPA has had a long-standing relationship with the client, helped the client build his business for 25 or 30 years, ultimately helped the client with the sales process, and was able to get that client over to us. There is no way we would have ever been able to pick up this client if not for the relationship that the CPA had. At the end of that meeting, we went through the presentation. The CPA said, these guys are my financial advisors. You're in really good hands with them, and I will be involved in the process. He looked at us and said, that's good enough for me, took out his checkbook, and truly wrote a $4 million check. So that is why we're doing this, guys. This is why you're putting all of the hard work in. I also want to share with you, Serini did a call with an advisor who's in our group for about 4 or 5 months, I guess it is, who had Ken do a call with the advisor's own personal CPA, who's been that advisor's CPA for a number of years. They've, if you guys, this is somebody that, if you guys remember, we talk about early on in the program here, having that difficult conversation with the CPA, kind of what I call that stuttering script, where the CPA isn't reciprocating to the level that they should. Well, that's how this relationship got re-engaged, I guess, about 4 or 5 months ago. And the long and short of it is, the CPA, who does about 550 returns a year for a fairly high net worth, small business-oriented practice, committed to go ahead and join the Advisors Alliance program, and committed to do a client appreciation event down the road, and also committed to have this advisor begin to brand his office with sales literature and material, et cetera, about the advisor, and spend every Saturday during tax season within this CPA's practice. So this, I think, is going to be a huge win. The CPA seem to be very, very entrepreneurial and business-oriented, and really seem to have a very high net worth practice, which I think is going to be a really good fit for the advisor in our group. So I like to, again, share those successes so that you guys can continue to persevere and understand that ultimately, as I said earlier, the reason we're doing all this hard work is to ultimately get to a point where we do have a handful of these relationships, and we can sort of put our client acquisition on autopilot. So with that, guys, from an accountability check-in, here's where we should be at this point as a reminder. I'm going to hit it really quickly. We should have created a CPA marketing plan. We should be listening to all webinars. I send the replays to you guys for 2 reasons. Number 1, if it's not convenient for you to make the time that we have it. Number 2, so that you can master the information. I think it's a big advantage to be able to listen to it 2 or 3 times, or to pull out a webinar a day or 2 before a meeting that you have with the CPA, where you can fine-tune that particular skill set. So again, you're going to get what you put in out of the program. I personally would suggest you listen to all of these webinars at least a 2nd time, if not 3rd time. You should have an ample lead database, at least 100 leads. All of your CPAs, your client CPAs, I should say, should be in your lead database. Enhance your lead database with, again, what I call those Glengarry leads, HD Vest, First Global, Genworth. These are licensed CPAs, sort of that low-hanging fruit. Master your scripts, guys, right? We provide you with a lot of, I call them scripts. I guess they're really more phrases or talking points, right? Master fiduciary responsibility. Master put the cart before the horse. Master all of those different phrases that we've created, because when you need it, you want it to truly be able to roll off of your tongue. Make it your own. Doesn't need to be word for word the way I say it, but make sure that you're able to portray or I guess rephrase these sayings in a way that the CPA will truly be able to get the concept that you're trying to get across. You must inspect for them to respect, right, your SWAT team. Ensure that you are overseeing what the individuals who are helping you with this project do. Be a resource to them. Have them continue to develop. I think best practice, guys, they should be on all these calls. I don't think a lot of us have our staff on these calls, and quite frankly, I think they should, or at the very least, you should give them a homework assignment where they need to listen to the replay. Hour a week on skill development for you and your staff. Make sure you have your own office visit material and that it's something that you're proud to present to the CPA. I have advisors who are telling me that they've yet to create that. If you want to have that created, that's where you're going to build the credibility with the CPA firm that you're trying to woo. If you haven't already had your difficult conversations, time is now to have those. So go out, don't procrastinate, have that difficult conversation with any CPA that's not reciprocating. Random acts of kindness should be happening. It should be part of your business right now. Every week, something positive should be happening where you're performing some random act of kindness for a CPA that you have already met. 4 CPE workshops over the next 12 months, picking dates, finding speakers and topics, etc., etc. And lastly, you should be utilizing a contact manager system of some sort so that you can track the CPAs that you have met, where you are in the relationship, and just like a client, be documenting. So as you start to meet more and more CPAs, you will remember specific, individual, personalized information about each CPA that you continue to work with. Okay? So that's a quick accountability check-in, guys. If you can look at this list and say that 80 or 90% of this has already been accomplished in your practice, or it's happening as we speak, I would be very, very surprised if you are not in the position where by the end of this program you're really, really happy and satisfied with the level of referrals that you're getting from accounting firms. Guys, you've seen this at this point, our CPA relationship model, pretty much on every webinar, and you'll probably continue to see it on every webinar. Internalize it, right? I want you to internalize it. I come back to this when I look to troubleshoot with myself, my partners, or advisors in the group as to where the relationship is ultimately not going in the right way, where it's going wrong. Getting belly to belly, initial meeting, office visit, social meeting. This is where I think a lot of us in the group probably are today. We're having trouble getting the CPA commit to doing something. That, guys, is going to ultimately be about your leadership skills, which is part of what we're going to hit today. Getting them to do something. I'll give you a perfect example. I just started, or in the process of trying to start, a relationship with a new CPA firm out here on Long Island. What I got the CPA, who is a little bit, not a little bit, a lot, very conservative and very cautious about moving forward, what I was able to get him to commit to do was to have me do a financial plan. I offered to do it for him, but he suggested that I do it for his daughter. So I have his daughter and her husband coming into the office that the CPA is going to observe, and I'm going to be doing a financial plan for that client with the expectation that he's going to observe the process and really get a better understanding of what we do and how we work. Now, my belief is if I can get the CPA's child to become my client, at the end of the day, I'm dramatically stacking the odds in my favor for this CPA to be comfortable. No different than the story I talked about before with the big referral we got, the $4 million client. The CPA being able to truly say to their client, they are my financial planning team, goes a long, long way. So again, I've given you guys a list of what get them to do something means. It could be a host of different things, but that's a place where I really want you to focus your time and energy, right? Client event planning is part of that process, some little step that they could make. Weekly and bi-weekly interactions, guys. We're going to start to shift gears now in the webinars, right? So the webinars have been designed really, if you think about it, around prospecting, initial meeting, office visit, social meeting. Now where we're going to start to go is to the back end of this, getting the CPA to commit to something, client event planning. I'm going to do a webinar on how to do CPE events and how to actually host a client appreciation event for a CPA firm, along with slides that we use in the actual presentation itself. And then the tail end of our program is going to really focus on what to do in these weekly and bi-weekly interactions with CPAs. I think I entitled that webinar 16 Impactful Weekly or Bi-Weekly Interactions to have with the CPA. So the front end has been built, guys. We should know how to get belly to belly. We should know what to do in the meetings with the CPAs, the 4-step sales process. Now we're going to start to focus our energy on leadership development, how to do presentations for CPA clients or to CPAs, and then how to effectively lead the CPA on those weekly, bi-weekly interactions. And folks, that's primarily, if I can get you there, that to me is kind of A to Z, all the steps that we should need if we can master each of those modules to ultimately be hugely successful in working with CPAs. We've seen all this, guys, right? For sake of brevity, I'm going to just real quickly hit this stuff. Step 1 is our introductory meeting. Step 2 is our office visit, followed by lunch, right? That's where we break bread. That's where we start to build the relationship. We're then going to work on how to make that relationship work, creating the vision and the marketing plan. And then lastly, the business planning meeting, which is where we start to kind of talk turkey. We have our 3-option discussion, and for the right CPA, we start to talk about how this could benefit that accounting firm financially. So where I want to move now, guys, is really where we left off at last month's webinar, which is talking about how to get implied permission to ultimately be a pest to the CPA. And I think you guys have heard me tell this story before, but real quickly, just as a refresher, right? At my broker-dealer, we have this acronym, and it's called a Woody Woofie. What Woody Woofie stands for is, what do you want for yourself? And this is where I kind of think I learned this leadership skill, is going through this Woody Woofie process. And what that process is where you go through a process with a leader, and the end result of that process is to try to find out what it is that your true values are and what's important to you. And the story goes like this, guys. At the end of the day, I went through the Woody Woofie process with one of my leaders, and one of the most important goals that I had for myself was to take care of my health, right? Because without your health, you don't have anything. And what I decided to do, or what I committed to do, I should say, was to eat healthy and to exercise. And my leader, when I was done with that Woody Woofie process, said to me simply, hey, John, I know you're committed to your health. That's one of your guiding principles and one of your big goals for this year. If I see you doing some things that are not necessarily in line with you getting what you want for yourself, do I have your permission to let you know so I can help you get where you want to go? And what I said to my leader, of course, because it sounded like a great idea at the time, was sure, of course, because I was committed to do it. Long story short, guys, is a couple of weeks later, and you guys might have heard this story, I was walking through my hallway with a meatball Parmesan hero in my hand with a little sauce dripping down my chin. And my leader, whose name was Don, by the way, pulled me into his office and said to me straight out, he goes, John, do you really think you should be eating that right now? And I kind of looked at him like, how dare you? And what he said to me was, you know, John, a couple of weeks ago you were in my office and you said, hey, one of your guiding principles for yourself was your health. And without your health, you said, John, you couldn't get anywhere, right? You couldn't be a good father without your health. You couldn't be a good husband. You couldn't have all these important things in your life. And you had told me that if I saw you doing anything that was not in line with you meeting your goals, it was okay for me to let you know. So here I am, because I care about you, letting you know that I don't think eating that meatball hero is a good idea. So the story, guys, is important because unless my leader and I had already had that conversation and he asked me if it was okay that if I was not doing something in line with my reaching my goals, if it was okay for him to call me out in the carpet, and I agreed to that. Working with the CPA, guys, once we go through the sales process and they say, I'm in, that's where we are right now, right? The CPA is going to say, I'm in. What our human nature is to jump up and down and get all excited and say, that's great. What I want you to do, because again, we want the CPA to feel as if this is a privilege to be able to work with you and have you build the financial planning arm within their practice, is I want you to have that conversation that you see on the screen in front of you. So as you see on my script, what it says here is generally the best time to use this is after presenting the joint marketing plan and discussing goals for the joint business. So once I went through the steps that we needed to take to be successful, and the CPA said, that sounds great, and then I took out my economic value spreadsheet and said, hey, if we follow this marketing plan, Mr. CPA or Mrs. CPA, at the end of year 1, you're going to make $18,000. At the end of year 2, you're going to make $32,000, whatever it may be. And after I got the CPA excited about it, I'm going to ask a question to say, hey, Mr. and Mrs. CPA, we laid this plan out. My belief is if we actually carry through on that marketing plan and follow through, I should say, on that marketing plan, 5 years from now, here's where we're going to be. You're going to be making X amount of dollars. We're going to improve the lives of X number of your clients, and we're both going to be really happy and get what we want. Do you believe that that's true? CPA most likely is going to say, yeah, I think if we do all that, I think we're going to get there. Absolutely, John. That's when I'm going to say, hey, Ken, I wanted to have a conversation with you around everything we spoke about up to this point. I feel really very confident that you and I are on our way to creating a mutually beneficial relationship if we follow the marketing plan we've created and continue to meet on a weekly, bi-weekly basis as we've agreed, confirming that that's okay, right? That's what I'm doing here, guys. I truly believe we'll be able to attain our goals that we've set for our partnership. My only concern is that if we lose focus and do not execute on this plan. Obviously, I know you have many other things on your plate, and I'm more than willing to take on the responsibility of ensuring that we continue to execute on our plan. In order to do so, I will need to hold us both accountable to sticking to the plan and creating the appointment activity necessary to reach our goals. Now, Ken, this could be a little awkward sometimes, and I wanted to get your permission to be somewhat of a test in order to ensure that we stay on track so that when we look back a year from now, we will both be well on our way to the success that we've envisioned. Is it okay? I'm asking permission, guys, just like Don did for me to be a pest in order to ensure that we both achieve the goals that we have set out to accomplish. Okay? Guys, that script that you see on your screen right in front of you is one of the main and many keys to becoming a good leader. If you get someone to a point, whether it be a CPA, a staff person, or quite frankly, if I was a personal trainer, it could be the person that I was looking to train, where they actually are saying to you, this is what I want, I'm bought in, I'm willing to do what it takes, and it's okay for you to put me on your back and kind of, run me through the finish line if I do not hold up my end of the bargain. Once they say yes to this, guys, it is your fault if you are not successful, because they just basically gave you full ability, full authority, and full control to ensure that the two of you are going to implement the entire marketing plan that you've laid out. And we know, guys, if we can implement that marketing plan, teach them to give a referral the right way, host events, et cetera, at the end of the day, you can't help but be successful if a CPA has several or a couple of hundred relationships that already trust them, okay? So I want to really emphasize this, guys. If you can have this conversation and get the CPA to say yes, you are going to clean up. You've got to have the conversation. It is not an easy conversation to have. It's not a comfortable conversation to have. But what the CPA will recognize after you have this conversation is, number one, you're serious. Number two, you're committed. And number three, that you are leading them. You are in control. That's the key, guys. Once the CPA starts to guarantee that you've got the answers and that you're going to be in control and accountable to being successful, that is ultimately where they're going to say, I trust John, I'm going to do what John says, and this is going to work because John's got a plan. And you guys have heard me say more than once, somebody will only follow you if you know where you're going and they know you know where you're going, right? This is showing them that this is not our first rodeo and we actually have a plan in place and we need them to be fully on board. So this is a script, guys, that needs to be used. It needs to come out, and it should generally come out once they've already nodded their head and say, I'm in, right? I want to be part of your Alliance program. I want you to do planning for more of my clients, even if they don't want to get paid, but they bought into you, they bought into your process, and for one way or another, they want to introduce you to their clients. You guys have heard me say before, the hard part is getting the CPA to say, yes, I'd like to work with you and join your Alliance program. But the harder part is now getting them to refer. This is where this begins, guys. This is one of the first steps in that harder part, which is changing the relationship to you pursuing them to join your Alliance program, to them following you to success in integrating financial services into your tax practice. So I think enough said there, guys. I really want you to understand the true significance of having that conversation because it is a major, major key to the success that you're going to have. Switching gears here for a minute, guys, understanding the CPA mindset, common CPA concerns, and how to alleviate them. So you have seen this slide before as to what the common CPA concerns are. Gotten a lot of requests to put in writing, well, how do I alleviate them, John, right? So I get their concerns, but what are some catchphrases that you've used to be successful so that I can get those concerns off of the CPA's mind? Now, I want you to understand this piece, guys. It's never going to be perfect. People have concerns generally because they're real, right? We don't just have, these paranoid feelings that we should be concerned about something because there's no fact to it. So we cannot eliminate these concerns, but I believe we can alleviate. Big difference between eliminate and alleviate these concerns. And we can do that by weaving in certain phrases and having certain conversations throughout the sales process when the time is right. We cannot just say, hey, here are the 7 or 8 concerns that most CPAs have, and here's why they're not real, okay? The best salespeople in the world, guys, anticipate concerns and roadblocks and alleviate them. When we alleviate someone else's concern, what ultimately happens is they feel more comfortable, confident, and trusting because they understand that we get what's on their mind. The goal is not to tell them that the concern is not real because if somebody believes something, that is their reality. That makes sense? If somebody believes someone, that's their reality. So I'm not going to convince a CPA that losing an existing client is not a potential issue. If they refer a client to me and I don't treat that client well and that client loses 50% of the value of their portfolio, it is possible, and it has happened before, not to me necessarily, but somewhere in the industry, that a client will get angry at that CPA and choose to leave that CPA for giving that referral. There is nothing that you can ever say to eliminate that concern. But there are things that I believe you can say to alleviate it. That's what we're going to focus on. So we've got loss of existing clients. We have client perception. Client perception is, what will the client think if I'm now sharing with the client that I'm not only their CPA, but I'm also in some way, shape, or form involved in their financial planning? What will the client actually think? We're going to talk about how to alleviate that in a minute. Independence. One of the main codes of conduct that a CPA has is at all times maintaining their independence. So a concern that a CPA may have, and many of them do, is, well, if I am referring someone and getting a referral fee or sharing in the revenue, am I in fact being independent? That's a real concern. Fee-based versus transactional-based. CPAs are concerned, they believe you and I are a step above a used car salesman. They're concerned that our business is going to be transactional, that we are going to sell their clients high commission products, which is good for us, not good for their clients. I need to alleviate that concern. Loss of referrals from other financial professionals. They believe that if they are in a formal alliance with me, that the number of referrals that they will get from other professionals will stop or slow down. That's a reasonable and foreseeable concern. We have to alleviate it. Licensing. They are concerned with the time, energy, and the ability that they may or may not possess to pass these exams if we do choose to get them licensed. Realistic concern. Cost. CPAs do not understand what this will cost them to add another business. Time. We all have a finite amount of hours in every week. Most CPAs are pretty busy keeping their own practice running. They do not necessarily feel as if it may be worth their time or that they have the time to create a whole nother business by incorporating financial planning. Reasonable concern. And then compliance and regulatory issues. CPAs are concerned that if we mess something up, or if a client just decides that they'd like to go after the CPA for any financial issues that might have occurred from their referral, that there is risk to them. That's a big concern. Can't eliminate it, but I think we can alleviate it, and I'll give you some examples. So I'm now going to go, guys, concern by concern, and I'm going to hit on how we can alleviate, not necessarily eliminate, but how we can alleviate those concerns. So the first one was loss of existing clients. These concepts, all of them, should be weaved into your four-step sales process. Try to verbalize it before they ask you about it, okay? So, guys, these are sayings, okay, phrases that I will use in dialogue with CPAs so that they can hear me say it and they can internalize it and say, John gets it, okay? And you've got to pick and choose the right spot and time in the conversation. But in your mind, guys, right, what you should be doing is you should be thinking to yourself, how do I'm going to click back a slide for a minute, how do I, through my course of conversation, hit each of these 8 or 10, whatever it is I have up there, concerns? How do I alleviate it throughout my conversation so I know the CPA is comfortable, okay? And you almost have to check them off in your brain. I've had some advisors in the group who said, you know what, I keep a checklist now, and once I say it, I'll check it off so I know I did it in conversation, and I'll go on to the next one. So it doesn't have to be in any specific order, guys. It just has to be that you address it at some point in the sales process. Here's an example of what you could weave into your process to alleviate the concern, not eliminate, but alleviate the concern that a CPA can lose an existing client if things don't go well with you. So here's what I might say, guys. You know, hey, Ken, one of the things that I want to make sure that you understand is that I truly recognize that when you give me a referral, the experience that your client has with me is a reflection on you. I take this very seriously and ensure that I create the right expectations with your client. The first expectation that I set is that you, as the client's CPA, will continue to act as their fiduciary and oversee the financial planning process excuse me, from 1,000 feet above, and not be involved in any specific investment recommendations. However, be there to make sure that the big picture concepts are prudent. I also make one guarantee to your client. At some point in our relationship together, their account will in fact decrease in value. Then I also guarantee that your client, that when that happens, because it is actually inevitable, that I will be there to explain what's going on and to discuss any potential alternative actions to be taken based on their situation as a whole. Last piece, guys, is I truly understand, Ken, what a great leap of faith it is to refer another professional to your client. And I will do everything possible to protect and enhance your relationship with your valued client. So, guys, that is not rocket science. But if I say that or you say that within your sales process, hopefully you can see where I'm going with this, guys. It doesn't eliminate the concern because the client still could get angry. We don't control that. But the CPA can hopefully now look at this and see that at the end of the day, John Cutton gets it. He understands that the client is important and that when I give a referral, it's a reflection on me. And he is aware that he is going to try to do everything possible to set the right expectations and to ensure that this doesn't backfire on me. Doesn't guarantee it's not going to happen, but if I'm that CPA, I'm walking away after that conversation saying he gets it, I feel confident and comfortable. He is different and better than anyone else I've ever met because most financial professionals have never had that conversation with the CPA. They sweep it under the rug and don't bring it up because if you don't bring it up, it's not there. But what I'm telling you guys is if you want to understand the CPA's mindset, that concern is there with every single CPA you're going to meet with. They're not going to ask, they're not going to tell you, but it may be what keeps them from doing business with you. You'll just never know it. So by weaving that in, my belief is that's going to help you in your sales process. Second concern, client perception. Same thing. We're going to weave it in. Here's something that we could say, guys. Ken, one of the things that I believe is very important that we explain to your clients as we offer financial planning services to them is that the advisory fee that we charge the client does not go up due to the fact that you're being compensated to be involved in overseeing the financial planning process. As an example, my average advisory fee is 1%. I don't raise the fee to 1.5% to cover your compensation as the CPA. I continue to charge the client a 1% advisory fee and then share a portion of that fee with you for your time, your experience, and your knowledge. At the end of the day, your client wins by having you involved in their situation and does not have to pay your hourly rate to be involved in their financial planning. Pretty simple, guys, right? If we don't have that conversation, the client doesn't get it. You have to tell the person you're trying to sell why they need to buy what you're offering. If I'm a CPA who's very client-centric, which most are, hopefully I'm going to be able to see after I say that to the CPA, that CPA should be able to see that I'm involved, it costs my clients no more money, so why in God's name would they not perceive that as valuable, right? They're going to go out and do this at no additional cost to me. That is a valuable thing. Does it eliminate it? Of course not. Client could still think the CPA is double dipping, etc. But what we're doing is helping the CPA see this through a different set of eyes, which hopefully empowers them to feel comfortable moving forward. Independence, guys, right? We talked about CPAs wanting to be independent. Here's how I weave this into my process. Ken, I would suggest that you consider calling your 5 or 10 most valuable clients and ask them this simple question. If I were able to interview several financial planning firms to find one that has the integrity, experience and track record in helping clients reach their goals. And I was willing to spend my time as your CPA to oversee the financial planning process at no additional cost to you. Would my involvement in that process be valuable to you? Hopefully you guys can see how powerful that is. What client is going to say no to that? And when you get a CPA, they're not all going to call 5 or 10 of their clients, guys. It would be great if they did. But most of them are just going to listen to what you say and say, I never thought about it that way. My clients want me to be involved. And further, maybe by not being involved, I'm doing them harm. Ken, one of the things I understand that most CPAs struggle with in considering integrating financial planning into their tax practice is potentially losing their independence. I'm not going to hide behind it, guys. I'm going to tell them that's a concern. As we discussed earlier, many times financial advisors don't always act in their client's best interest. And I'm saying that, guys, because in most of the 4-step processes that you go through, at some point the CPA is going to tell us that financial advisors don't always do the right thing for their clients. So I'm going to say, as we discussed earlier, a lot of times financial advisors do not always act in their client's best interest. I believe by their CPA not involving themselves in their client's financial planning decisions, your valued client may be vulnerable to those unscrupulous financial advisors. This kind of ties in, guys, the fiduciary responsibility conversation, right? We're calling them out on the carpet a little bit, saying, hey, you're so worried about being independent and not being perceived the wrong way that at the end of the day, you're not taking good care of your clients because you don't want to be perceived the wrong way. Well, look at it a different way. Wouldn't you rather do the due diligence, give your clients fair disclosure while you're getting involved and that you are going to be compensated for your time and experience and energy, and let them choose whether or not they're okay with it? And what we know, guys, is that 95% of the clients want their CPA involved. The new referral we brought on, the new client we brought in, wanted the CPA involved. The only reason that client did business with my company was because the CPA was involved. We have to show the CPA, stop worrying about perception, just frame it the right way to your client, and it will take care of itself. Fee-based versus transactional-based, right? Again, a common concern. How do we weave it in? Ken, one of the things that excites me about our potential relationship is the fact that our compensation structure of each of our firms is very similar. As you know, my firm's compensation is 95% fee-based, which I believe will truly help your clients feel very comfortable, as it's very similar to how you currently bill your clients for advice, as a pay-as-you-go method. That's how CPAs work, guys, right? They don't charge a commission of 5% or 7% on a product. They do the work every year, just like we do on a fee basis. And if the client chooses to not value our advice, they've only paid us for the time and energy that we've put in up until that point in time. Pay-as-you-go method. From time to time, transactional-based products may make sense for your clients. I think it would be a good idea that if any time a product other than a fee-based product is going to be recommended, that I explain it to you prior to recommending it to the client to ensure that we're both comfortable the product is suitable for your client's needs. So why do I say that? I say that, guys, so the CPA can understand and recognize, number one, that my model is fee-based, which is important to them. Number two, that I get the fact that they're concerned about their client's perception about transactional products, and that I value the relationship with you as the CPA enough, more so than the relationship with the client perhaps, that I want to ask your permission and educate you so that we can jointly determine if this is in your client's best interest. We talked about the fact that most CPAs have somewhat of an ego about them. A lot of CPAs believe that they are very, very knowledgeable in many different areas. And a lot of times that's true. Sometimes it's not, but most of the time it's true. This is sort of pertaining to having them feel in control and important, that they will have control over the decisions as to what products will be ultimately recommended to their clients. This is something, guys, I came up with this and started saying this 10 years ago because this was Ken Sereni's idea, saying if you want to sell anything other than a fee-based product, you need to get it approved by me. And I do this with CPAs all the time. It puts them in control, and it helps them feel much more confident. It alleviates the concern. Loss of referrals from financial professionals, from other financial professionals. Here's what we weave. Ken, as we begin to build our relationship together, and I start to engage in the financial planning process with your clients, we will uncover many opportunities to refer other professionals, lawyers, mortgage brokers, pension administrators. What I'm saying is, as I go deeper with your clients than just preparing the tax return, we're going to uncover estate planning issues, refi issues. You guys get the idea. What I would like to suggest is that any time a referable opportunity ultimately presents itself, I will notify you, which will give you the opportunity to refer other professionals that you network with. This will stack the odds in your favor to have them reciprocate accounting referrals back to you. I'm now, guys, teaching the CPA how to actually be a better business person, aren't I? They're not thinking about stuff like this. But again, someone wants to follow someone with a plan. I'm already saying to the CPA, hey, look, I know you've never thought about this, but as I go deep with your clients, I'm going to have other opportunities to refer to other professionals. Why don't you refer them to people you know so you get referrals back, right? That's teaching them, guys, how to be a better business person. Ken, I was doing, this is a separate weave, okay? So those first two kind of go together, those first two bullet points. The third one is a separate thing that you could say. Ken, I was doing my yearly marketing planning and was wondering if you might be interested in being a guest speaker at one of my client appreciation events this year. This might be a great opportunity for you to meet and hopefully begin a relationship with some of my clients. So I'm showing the CPA, look, I know your concern might be that you're not going to get referrals from other financial professionals. Let me explain how you're going to meet different professionals that might not be financial advisors, but attorneys and mortgage people. Attorneys, by the way, guys, are the #1 referral source for most CPAs. And then further, I'm showing the CPA how if we're exclusive or semi-exclusive, I'm going to let you do some events with me and meet my clients, which is going to work as well. And I didn't list this one, guys. You can also talk, depending on your BD, if there are training opportunities in your BD, education days or opportunities for the CPA to interact with many advisors at once, you can also let them know how you will try to create those opportunities for them, which will ultimately, hopefully, have them meet new financial advisors at your BD that might be looking for a CPA to refer, as an example. So I think this is a pretty easy one to alleviate the concern by showing them how to kind of take lemons and turn them into lemonade. Licensing. Ken, one of the nice things is that as a CPA, you probably already possess 60 to 70% of the knowledge necessary to pass the exams required to be compensated for financial planning services. I'm going to play to their ego, guys, right? I'm going to show them that I know how smart they are, right, and that this exam is going to be a piece of cake for them. In addition, my firm will make available a group study class to you. This will help highlight the relevant areas to focus your attention on and energy. So what I'm saying there, guys, is basically, look, you're going to have to take some tests. I know that's not fun. That's not really a concern, guys. That's just, I don't think they're concerned about it. I think it's more of a, I have to do that to get paid, right? And again, depending on your BD, sometimes they have to do that to get paid. Sometimes there are other ways for the CPA to get compensated. But I guess at the end of the day, we want to make it as easy as possible for them, right? So make a study course available. You have Kaplan out there who does study course. You have STC, which is Securities Training Corporation. And I know there are others that are not coming to my mind right now. But there are a lot of companies out there that will sort of do a Series 7 or 65 or 63 or life and health crash course to make this as easy as possible on the CPA. Not a hard one to alleviate. Cost. CPAs are generally, I don't want to use a harsh word, but they don't part with their money very easily. Okay, they like to kind of count their pennies. They're called bean counters for a reason, right? So sometimes they're tight in making investments, which is why I believe we should eliminate any cost to the CPA. Don't be penny wise, pound foolish yourself. If there are costs to join your BD's affiliation or alliance program, guess what? Cover them if you're compliantly able to. You can't do it from a compliance perspective. Obviously, you can't do it, but if you're able to, cover those fees yourself, okay? If you're going to do joint marketing events, make sure that you cover that cost, okay? We talked about the fact that CPAs don't make quite as much money on average as a lot of us think they do. So parting with $1,000 or $3,000 or $5,000 or $10,000 for a client event may not necessarily be in their budget, and you don't want that to be the reason they don't go forward, because it's probably not something that they're going to tell you, right, that, hey, I don't have the money for it. They're just going to tell you they don't want to do it. So remove that obstacle. What I can say here, guys, to alleviate is, Ken, as a CPA, I'm sure you can appreciate the true business opportunity here. You've spent 20 years building relationships and trust with your clients. You're now in a position to offer a new value-added service, financial planning, with literally no financial outlay. Okay, CPAs, guys, are actually considered to be, from the client's perspective, they're consultants, right? CPAs are actually there to guide business owners in making better business decisions. They should be able to recognize this opportunity. Once we've eliminated their concerns, they should be able to look at this as a business person and say, if I was advising a client to create a new business, a financial planning firm, where they already have the clients that trust them in place, and it costs literally zero to open that business, my client would be a fool to not consider going ahead and doing that. That's really what we're doing here, is we're showing them what a great opportunity this is. And that's what I say here. What other professionals can start a new business venture with incredible earnings potential at no cost? And that's literally, guys, what we're doing for the CPA. They're starting a whole new business with an entire new business model at zero cost. Where else could you do that? Time. So when we talk about time, guys, and I believe time is, well, actually I have one more after this as a CPA concern. Time is, again, can you eliminate it? No. But I think we can make the CPA certainly feel much more comfortable with it. So, Ken, after reviewing the spreadsheet that I created that shows a reasonable expectation for your compensation, hopefully you can see that integrating financial services into your tax practice has the potential to become one of the highest billable hourly rate activities you do. Talk in terms that a CPA, guys, thinks of. CPAs are constantly looking at, right, what work should I do as a senior partner at $500 an hour level? What work can I get my staff to do, a junior as an example? That could be $250 an hour, et cetera, et cetera. So that's how they process, and that's how their own business works. So try to put it into a term that they can understand. Clearly, there's some outlay of time up front that's needed to put into building a financial planning practice. The beautiful part for you is that as we bring on new clients, your time will be limited, as my staff and I will continue to take care of the servicing needs of the clients. Most CPAs that have integrated financial planning within their tax practice will tell you that financial planning services is the activity that provides the highest billable hourly rate for their practice. Okay? So again, I'm talking, guys, in terms that they speak, and hopefully, again, as a business person, they're looking at this and saying, this guy's asking me maybe for 5 or 6 hours a month with the potential 3 to 5 years down the road to ultimately make $50,000 to $120,000 a year of revenue for a decent-sized accounting firm, that is, guys. If they do that math there, they're going to realize they're probably making themselves $1,000 an hour, right? So if they can spend, 70 hours a year, right, 6 hours a month gives you 72 hours a year, and make themselves $72,000 a year net to the bottom line of their firm, that's a pretty good place. So again, I don't want to confuse, guys. These last two, time, licensing, and cost, those last three, we can't talk about these too early on, right? This is kind of more part of the sales process. Once they said, yes, John, this sounds great, what are our next steps? This is part of the sales process. I don't want to talk about this in the first meeting because now I'm talking about money, and I don't want to talk about money too early, right? You guys have heard me say it's not about the money, it's not about the money, it's not about the money, until it's about the money. So until it's about the money, don't talk about cost, time, or money. And then lastly, guys, is compliance and regulatory issues. So when I think about compliance and I think about regulatory issues, who is a CPA, right? A CPA is very cautious, very conservative. They are looking at risk in everything that they do. So it is a natural concern for them to be thinking about, well, what could go wrong? What concerns or issues do I have? I had lunch with the CPA not too long ago, and the CPA actually talked about the fact that he once referred a client to a financial advisor. The client decided to sue the financial advisor and brought the CPA into that lawsuit. So I like to say, guys, hey, anybody can sue anybody for anything, right? Doesn't mean that they're going to win, but anybody could do it. So this is a real concern. It's impossible to eliminate, but here's a way that I think you can alleviate and at least help the client, the CPA rather, understand that you're cognizant of it. So Ken, sometimes advisors at my broker-dealer call our compliance department the business prevention department, right? A little bit of a joke. As you might expect, our broker-dealer has very strict compliance rules. In fact, they're probably stricter than most. While some financial advisors may look at this as a negative, I look at it as a positive, as we both have too much to lose. Having a strict compliance-driven company will ultimately help protect both you and I as we begin to build a relationship together. Not going to eliminate it, but it is going to alleviate it. Another thing that you could say, guys, which I didn't script here for you, but depending on your BD and what the CPA can and cannot do as far as giving advice, you could lay an extra level of insulation or protection in there if your BD is a BD that does not allow the CPA to be the advice giver. That's how I do things at my BD as an example. So when I put a CPA in my Alliance program, part of what they're signing as part of my Alliance program is that they will be compensated, but they cannot solicit business. So they can bring a client to me, they could sit in the meeting, but they can't suggest to a client, I think you should buy this product, or I think you should invest in this stock or bond. So I think if you have that dialogue with an accountant as well, it'll help them see that, hey, look, while anybody could sue me for anything, if I can't even give advice, then what can they come back and sue me for? Because it wasn't my advice in the first place, and the client is making his or her own decision as to which financial advisor to ultimately choose to go with. So this is a tough one, guys. this is one you will never eliminate. It is difficult to alleviate, but don't pretend it's not there, okay? If you pretend it's not there, it will remain on the CPA's mind, and that may very well be the reason that they choose to not ultimately go forward with you, okay? So you know what, guys, from a common CPA concern perspective, I want you to really understand and internalize what their concerns are and start to figure out how to use some of what I laid out today for you to help them feel more comfortable as part of your sales process. Now, what I would share with you guys as well is these are not the only ways to do it, right? So if you have your own thoughts, which, you know, again, I'd love to hear them, by the way, because they're great ideas for me. These are what some of my thoughts and best practices are, and some of what I've been able to utilize within my own practice with success. I'd like to see you consider using some of these and maybe developing some of your own as well. So with that being said, guys, as I thought earlier, we are about, I guess, 8 or 9 minutes over right now. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to table for today going through some of the leadership development stuff that I wanted to, because that's at least 40, you know, half hour, 40 minutes worth of presentation. And I want you to have capacity to digest, is open up the lines for Q&A and stick on for a couple of extra minutes here if anybody has any questions. But I think going into the leadership development information right now would most likely take too much time, and I want you to have the mental capacity to digest it. So what I want to close up with here before I quickly open up the lines for Q&A is hopefully what you took away from today's webinar is 2 main pieces of information, right? Or two or three. I want you to, number one, really assess where you are in the program, right? Are you up to date on the things that you should be doing? As I speak to more and more advisors who are now a year in, 18 months into my program, you know, or longer, what I'm finding is those who are being thoughtful and consistent are getting huge results and having huge success. Those who just tune into my webinars and forget about it for 30 days and don't do the work in between are, quite frankly, the ones that are not getting the success that they hope for. So it takes passion, it takes hard work, and it takes some determination, but it will be well worth that, hard work at the end of the day. I want you to also not only look forward, I want you to look backwards. So that sales process, the last 3 or 4 webinars that I've done, which go through that sales process, you need to own that. You need to listen to it several times. You need to get that stuff down so you are in command and know exactly where you want to go meeting to meeting, right? If I saw you in a hallway and said, 3-option discussion, it should roll off the tip of your tongue, okay? Go back, keep listening, keep practicing, get those skills really, really fine-tuned, and continue to sharpen the saw. Looking forward, what you need to now be thinking about with CPAs you already have relationships with, or to prepare as you're building those relationships, is how do I now get the CPA to follow me? How do I get implied permission to be a pest? And how do I become a better leader so that I have a plan that they ultimately want to follow? If you are able to do those things and think in those terms and commit to developing your skill set on those variables, you're going to win, and you're going to win big with this program. So with that, I'm going to open up the line to Q&A. And again, guys, as a refresher, I think the best way is to either raise your hand or to write in your questions. It looks like I have one here already, and I'm just opening it up here. And the question is, what do you say when a CPA you are working with asks if you're doing the same with other CPAs in the area? And that question is a good one, guys. I'm totally honest with them, okay? Number one, think about it this way, guys, and hopefully you're seeing this as you're going through the sales process. As you're building the relationship together with the CPA, the relationship generally starts to change once they're interested in going into a relationship that is a partnership where you're sharing revenue of some sort. It's not about the referrals you can give them anymore. It's really about doing the right work for their clients and the business value to them, the revenue that they can earn by adding a valuable service to their clients. So if you're following my system the right way, it should not be at a point where the CPA is saying, well, great, I'll give you a referral, you give me a referral. If it is a relationship like that, and the CPA is saying, look, I don't want to get paid, I don't want to get licensed, then I think you're honest with the CPA and you simply say, look, what I'm really looking for, I think you're great, and I'd love to help some of your clients, and I'd love for you to help some of my clients, and I want to continue our relationship, but what I'm searching for is a CPA who wants me to build a financial planning practice within their firm. So yes, I am going to continue to work towards that, but that does not mean that you and I cannot continue to work together and on a referral basis. It just means we're not going to share revenue, but I do want you to know that I am still going to work towards building that relationship with another firm, because that, to me, I believe is strategic and important for the growth of my practice. Sometimes that might even get them to act and say, well, maybe we can do that. So, Peter, that was your question. I don't know if that answered it. If you want to follow up by raising your hand or typing in a follow-up question, I'd be happy to answer that as well. And right now, guys, I do not see any other questions. And, you know, it looks like I got a response here from Peter. Good answer. I have a CPA I'm working with who asked that. Okay, so it sounds like that that satisfied that. And then I have another question. What random acts of kindness can we do? So, guys, be creative with random acts of kindness, right? I mean, here we are. We're heading into tax season right now. Everybody, any CPA that you are working on a solid relationship with, what I would be doing is already putting together today tax survival baskets to drop off during tax season. I think the best time to do that is probably the second or third week in February. So I think that's the next best gift right now would be a tax survival basket. So you guys have probably heard me talk about that before. Tax survival basket, you can make it yourself. That's what we do in our office. And there are companies out there that I'm sure make them as well. But you buy a nice basket, you throw some NoDoz in there, you throw some Excedrin, you throw chips and cookies and candy and Jolt soda and Mountain Dew and a squeezy bowl, and you guys get the idea. Just something to deliver and say, hey, here's something to help you get through tax season. These CPAs are going to be putting in tons and tons of hours. So at the end of the day, you can reward them with something like that. Another thing that we like to do at some point during tax season is just have lunch delivered to the CPA's office, right? So we will literally just call a deli and get if there's 10 people who work in the CPA's office, we'll get a couple pounds of turkey, a couple pounds of ham, cheese, some rolls, some bread, a couple of bags of chips and whatnot, and just have the deli deliver it, or you pick it up and deliver it yourself, which I think is better. With just a little note, you don't even have to see the CPA. You can leave it with the receptionist. If he's there or she's there, it's great if they want to say hello, but you just simply leave that information there. You leave that food there with a little note. My note would say, little something to help you get through the busy time, Cutting and Associates, maybe with a couple of my business cards. So, Jim, hopefully those are a couple of ideas. Another nice thing to do this time of year, guys, which you should be able to get through your BD or through any wholesaler. Most companies have something that would come out, key IRS dates, as well as the qualified plan limits and figures and that kind of information. So I know we just dropped off a bunch of those to CPAs where it's just a little handy tool that they could have in their desk that they'll remember you gave them, and it's value added. It's something that they can kind of look at and say, oh yeah, when they're meeting with the client next year, here's what you could put into a retirement plan, or here's where extensions are filed to, that kind of information. So hopefully that helps, Jim. And you know what? Just use your head. You know what? Anything that that comes to your mind, random acts of kindness, guys, are random acts of kindness. So anything that you're going to do nice for somebody, hopefully laws of reciprocation come into play, right? Law of reciprocation to me is you do something nice for somebody, hopefully they want to do something back and nice for you. Okay, looks like we are out of questions here, guys. I appreciate you tuning in. It's time to go, guys, right? Make sure that, you know, where the CPA will allow it, you're branding their offices. You're able to be in there hopefully a day or two a week. Saturdays are a great day. If you're willing to do it, to be within a tax office. And again, if you're in that meeting phase where you're meeting weekly or bi-weekly, and most importantly, influence, be a leader, ask them or tell them, show them how to refer, show them how to assess opportunities. Be there, kind of be in their face in a polite way without being too pushy, and continue to persevere. So with that, guys, thanks for tuning in.